For joining us, Andy Korge here at the Andy Korge Show at Miami Community News, the hub for local news and information in Miami-Dade County. And we have with us today a very special guest. I want to say before we start, man, look at this. It is a 2-coffee morning. I've got the Cuban coffee going. I've got the American coffee going. And I don't think I needed this at all because, we have joining us state championship coach from Hialeah Champagnat Catholic, Hector Clavijo. And Hector, thanks so much for coming in and joining us here on the Andy Korge Show at Miami Community News.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you. I always appreciate it.
So the first question, is this the 60th or 62nd consecutive state championship you've won at Champagnat? I mean, how many are you going on now?
No,
That's ridiculous.
This is only our second consecutive one, but it was our 5th consecutive trip. Our third state championship in 5 years. And then it's the 4th one for the school. So the school's only had football for 7 years, and we won 4 state championships and made 5 appearances. So I think we're doing a decent job.
I love it. I love it. It's like, so. I don't know what's happened up there in Hialeah. You guys just winning those state championships, man. I was so glad to see it. Glad to see you're getting, the recognition you deserve. We see your son in the back there. Like, you guys are a family affair. I thought it was really cool. Tragedy involving your brother last year and the remembrances and the team focused on your brother, who was the defensive coordinator, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's been a bittersweet year for you, I'm sure. Tell us a little bit about the run to the championship. It was a kind of a strange year, obviously, in terms of practicing, games, crowds, or lack thereof. What were some of the key components you think that brought you to a state championship this year at Champagnat Catholic?
I mean, the key components, in my opinion, are the fact that we were able to figure out a plan and procedure in the summer to continue to work out, even though, we had the COVID situation. I think that was very important. I think that was what gave us that lift. It kept us strong. It kept us in shape. It was difficult. It was tiresome for the coaches. Me having to be there from 11 in the morning to 7 o'clock at night because we had to go in such small groups, But I think that was the key. That was the key to success for us to start the year. And then just, playing a competitive schedule during the season and being battle tested. I think that's what set us up in the playoffs. And, our last 2 games of the year, we were down at some point in the first half and battled back and scored over 40 points in both of those games and were victorious. And I think that's a testament to the kids and the resiliency and just always ready to shake things off.
Coach, one of my impressions of this and high school football in general in Florida, I love, I was at 2 of your games this year, your 2 losses, actually, the 2 losses, Chaminade Madonna and against True Prep. And I saw you fighting. I saw you screaming on the sidelines, and you guys lost. And the lesson for the kids to say, we took on all comers and then you go win the state championship. It's like, to me, it's like such a metaphor for life. Like in today's media, no one wants to lose, right? You're watching the UFC fight. Everyone wants to watch the 19-0 guy. But here you guys were perhaps some of the most important things that happened to you guys this year were during those 2 losses and knowing what it feels like and knowing and being in that position and fighting back. How do you talk about that stuff with the kids?
Yeah, I mean, there's the Chaminade game prepared us for a team like this state championship game where they just wanted to run the ball. They wanted to run the ball. Well, that's what we, Chaminade, that's all they did as well. I think Chaminade threw 3 passes against us. So that game prepared us defensively for what to expect later on in the year. And in the true prep game, it got our offense prepared to, see different, formations and alignments, and also to battle test some of our guys that are new. You know, there was guys on our team that, didn't play for me last year. So we had to make sure that they were ready to go so that when we did get in an adverse situation, they were going to be prepared. Because it's not easy playing, even if it's not 80,000 people at state, it's still that stadium, it's still that feeling, it's that, you know, the sense of nerves. And I think that is it's prior to getting there. So, I do a couple things differently than maybe most people, and try to put my kids in a situation those things, very, very smart to the of the mind for them, and then we just roll.
And
Well,
then
let me just ask a question. Speaking of rolling, I'm curious what the halftime speech was like at the final game against University Christian, because I know you were down at halftime, right, by a point, I believe. And so,
Yeah.
I'm curious what that speech was that really got the kids going that second half to sort of bulldoze University Christian, although they kept it close even into the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah, I think into the fourth quarter, then they were down 7 at a point, and then we ended up putting the dagger in them late with like 2 minutes left. And then yeah, because we got the ball 6 or 7, and we just ran. The running back did a great job staying in bounds every time. He would literally slide just to keep the clock running. We ran down the clock to about under 2 minutes, and then on third down, we threw the ball to Malik Rutherford. He made a phenomenal one-handed catch in the back corner of the end zone, and that was it. The rest was history.
did you? Let me interrupt. Did you see that catch?
Yeah, I
That
did.
catch. I mean, that catch might be on Monday Night Football. That catch was amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a Sports Center. That was a
it was
Sports
awesome.
Center playback for sure.
Coach, I wanted to ask a question because in the middle of all this was signing day.
Right.
I want to talk to you about that day. I think you guys at the school do such a good job of highlighting that. What, you had 4 kids sign D1 offer letters?
Yeah. Yeah. We had 4 kids go. I might have another one go today. Um, and yeah, I mean, we could have 4 or 5 guys total that could go Division 1, and it was an awesome feeling. It was tricky to try to put that together, and it took a couple of days of planning. Like, do we do it before the game, after the game, the day before, the night before? Do we just wait till we come back? The letter of intent expires today. Like, what do we do? And that was part of the process. Um, but we just said, you know what? Let's knock it out early. We got up, had breakfast, check at 8, signing day at 9, and we were out of the hotel at 10. And it worked out really smooth. The kids' families were there. It was a great feeling, a great experience for them. And I'm a big believer in that's something that has to be done. I don't care what times we're in. That group picture with those guys signing, it's something that they're gonna remember forever. And I think it's super important.
Yeah, it's interesting, as an old guy, when I saw that, like in the middle of all this, I saw you guys take the moment, and I think it's important in life to mark those. It's an interesting moment because you're in the middle of a state championship. Do you really want to focus on individual things? But I think that, so much in life is like there's a reason we have these ceremonies. There's just reasons we have these moments. And it's important, especially for these young kids who don't really have the context. I think you as the coach, you as the school, I thought it was cool that you guys took that moment and did that and highlighted, the reward of all this hard work for these kids and moving on to the next level. What schools, coach, are they going to? The 4 I know: Kicker to UM.
So yeah, kicker to UM and just regardless. DeAndre Spate's going to UConn. Donovan Jones is going to Gardner Webb, and Malik Rutherford, the one that caught the one-handed catch, is going to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, the one-handed catch.
One out of yeah, he's going to GTAC, man. Great
Good for
education.
him, man.
What
Yeah.
was Coach was recruiting different this year? I mean, in the year of COVID, how did these kids get seen? How was there scouts coming to some of these games this year? How did all that work?
No, so scouts weren't allowed at any games. Recruiting has honestly been very, very difficult. It's honestly it's been super frustrating. Because there's a lot of rules and not only have the rules been altered due to COVID, with them not being to come in and evaluate our kids, um, but add the new rules of the transfer portal and things of that sort, where now there's transfer kids that are getting priority in recruiting over high school kids. So not only do you have X amount of high school kids looking to go to college, but now go ahead and add the hundreds of transfer portal kids to that
Hundreds.
mix. Yeah, you're talking hundreds of kids that are at institutions that um decided to they don't want to be there no more, for whatever the reason, whether they're not playing, they're not happy, whatever the case may be. But now they're up for for a new spot. And if they check off that height, weight, speed box, and they probably look good because they've been on a meal plan for 1 or 2 years, why would you go take the 160-pound high school kid that you still got to stuff like a teddy bear for 2 years before he does anything for you? And as we all know, in college football, it's a business. So that coach is looking to win right now. He's not looking to win in 3 years, because in 3 years he won't be there. So it's really put a burden on the high school kids. So if you're not a blue chip, recruit, it's been really difficult. It's been really, it's been a long process, um, and it's been crazy. I got back today, and I thought I was gonna just hang out and get some rest. I got back super late last night, and instead I'm on my way right now to go meet with some of the smaller school coaches like NAIAs and Division twos. They're allowed to be on the road, so I'm gonna go meet with them and have my kids meet me in a remote area, so we could introduce them and do some paperwork and get those kids applied and start getting them going. And it's different, but it's a different process. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain to the kids, hey, coach, why am I not going, here? Or to a parent, hey, why is my kid not going to college or to a Division 1 school? It's a long conversation I got to have with them that's beyond my control. You
Yeah,
know,
we're talking
um,
to Coach Hector Clavijo, Champagnat Catholic, whose team just won the 2A state championship. Here with my good friend David Winker on the Andy Cord Show. I do a nightly radio show with Brett Romberg, former University of Miami center and NFL player, and we debate the last couple days about the recruiting and the value. This kid's a 5-star, this kid's a 4-star. But I brought the point that yesterday, that in using the example of the 2006 class, the number one quarterback wasn't Tim Tebow, wasn't Sam Bradford, wasn't Josh Freeman. It was Mitch Mustaine. And so what do you say about the value of this whole, this team got the best recruiting class, and this team, we look back at some of the University of Miami recruiting classes as an example, and during Jimmy Johnson, even Dennis Erickson's time there were so many players, that some that became NFL Hall of Famers that weren't even recruited by anyone. Jerome Brown comes to mind. The players can make that step. It's not always the 5-star athlete, the 5-star recruit that becomes a star in college football. You agree with that?
I agree. I agree. I think the whole stars. It's like I look at it like like the stock market, right? Um, some stocks, like if you invest in Apple per se, you're pretty like your you're pretty secure. You know what I mean? Like you may not get rich, but overnight, but you're pretty sound. Now you want to go play in the penny stock world. you know, sure, you may hit one or two and you're going to make some money, but it's just the odds, the numbers, the numbers don't lie. And I completely understand, although I disagree a lot of times with the recruiting numbers and rankings, but I understand where it comes from. Football is a big man sport. Football is a fast man sport. Um, so if you meet those requirements, starting with height, weight, speed, and then you could produce uh, uh, some tape, and you look like you can do what you can do, you're going to be a higher. It's numbers, right? You're going to be the odds of you being more successful at the next level are higher if you're bigger, faster, and stronger, right? Now you may be a better football player than the bigger, faster, stronger guy, but once college coaches feel like they could coach anybody, right? They're all gurus, so they're going to get a guy that checks off the boxes that he can't coach, and then go coach him, rather than get a guy that's already a great football player. But you know what? This is as good. I can't make him any better. Like, he's already good, but he's not going to grow. He doesn't have a frame. He can't get much stronger. He could be a liability for us, or he could get hurt often. And that's how they kind of go looking at it. So I always tell people, if you're not big, if you don't meet the height, weight, speed requirement, you need to be special. Okay, if you're not special, you cannot expect to go Division 1. And those guys that played at University of Miami back in the day, they may not have met those requirements for height, weight, speed per se, but they were special. Obviously, they were special guys. Um, and a perfect example is the kid going to Georgia Tech, Malik Rutherford. Coach, that kid's 5'8", maybe 5'9". He's not the biggest kid in the world, but he's special. Every week, he's doing something that you're like, wow, like you can't teach that, you know. So, so him being able to do that week in and week out show you why he's a Division 1 player, and you could go down the line. Last year, Sean Taylor's brother, that was at Gulliver. I
Yeah.
think he had like 10 interceptions or something crazy. But he was also a very small guy. But he ended up going Division 1. Um, it was small D1, but he went. Why? Because he was special. He did things that were, out of the norm. He was a freak athlete. He played basketball, super athletic, high football IQ. Those things happen, and when you get those guys, those are the ones that are the 3 stars that nobody talked about, and now they're in the NFL. The highest paid slot receiver in the NFL, I mean, slot corner, nickel corner, is a Division 2 guy out of Valdosta State. You know, um, and he's about 5'9". And people don't start realizing that. You go down the list, there's every year more and more guys are getting drafted from smaller schools. Why? Because college coaches are missing, or you get guys transferring, or you just get guys that want it more. And sometimes those smaller guys, if they meet the boxes, all the other boxes besides height, weight, speed, well, maybe you got a chance as well. But you got to be special. So I think Miami's done a better job of that, of avoiding the stars and just getting quality players. Um, and I think some other schools are going in that direction as well. Um,
Do you think, Hector? Do you think that this whole movement of players on the college level, the portal, the transfer portal, as you say, and it is hundreds. Brett Romberg and I talked about this last night, as a matter of fact. Do you think that's hurting college football?
I don't think it's hurting college football. I think it's hurting high school football.
Okay.
Um, that that's what's being affected. It's the high school kids being affected. The colleges, who care? Like, what difference does it make for them? You know, like, okay, like I heard Virginia Tech is losing a bunch of guys. Okay, if they pass the rule that if they lose one, they can get one, who cares? It becomes a waiver wire instead. It's a salary cap. you know, and that's the only difference. Now you better do a good job of evaluating. Now you got to go evaluate high school film on a guy that hasn't played high school football maybe in 2 or 3 years, but he went to Alabama. So he went to Alabama. He was a 4-star recruit out of high school, has never touched the field there. But now, you know what? We'll take him at FAU because he looks good, and we'll figure it out. And that's gonna also happen. But if you fall for that and you feel like you want to run with the stars and you want to go off of those things and it hurts you, that's your problem. That's each individual's problem. But I don't think it'll hurt, college football. The only way I think it could hurt college football is if this whole rule passes where the kid could transfer right away and be available right away. I think that will have a huge effect because literally, you can have a freshman All-American that goes to UTSA. I think they actually have one right now. There's like a stud running back at UTSA right now. He he could turn around and say tomorrow, "Hey, you know what? My team's not that great. I'm never going to win a national championship. Screw it, I'm out." And he checks out today in December, and in January he's enrolled at Florida State, Florida, LSU, or something. You know, like now you're gonna hurt those small schools that have put in the time and effort into a guy, built them into something, and now now he's gone.
Well, De'Ara
So
King, University of Miami quarterback, comes to mind. I mean, you're explaining that scenario with De'Ara King, sort of. We got a frozen screen here
you
with
now
Hector.
Hey,
you know
start
you have
again. We lost her there. So talk about De'Ara King.
say it again, Winker.
We couldn't hear what you said. To tell us about De'Ara King, we missed your reaction.
Oh, so De'Ara King, he was a graduate transfer.
Right. Yeah, he's different.
So,
yeah, exactly.
So he took advantage of a rule that's been in place for a while.
Yes.
And I think it's very fair. I think it's a fair rule. If you do your part in your classroom and you're able to graduate on time or really early, now you have the free pass of doing what you want. So now to me, it's like you're giving a kid an incentive to graduate, which I think it's important. Instead, this other rule is going to give a kid that may be a diva and unhappy or unwilling to work now the free pass of, "Oh, I'm out of here. I'm going to go elsewhere." You know.
Yeah, and that was sort of the point that Brett Romberg made during our program yesterday, was that it devalues the hard work because some kid maybe just has to work a little bit harder as opposed to making that jump because he thinks, well, I can start over here. The other point was that Brett made yesterday was that, well, injuries happen at all levels, and your turn up in the box might be next, might be one play away. So, I think some of those considerations, that's why it basically, like for me, baseball became hard to follow because players were just moving all over the place. And I couldn't, root for a team and be sure that, those players would be there. And so I'm afraid that with college football, especially since it's still, I know it's a big business, but it's not the big business that the NFL is. I could relate to it in the NFL because these guys are making a living and putting their bodies on the line doing that. Yeah. But I wonder about college.
I think the NCAA is going to have to come down with some rules. Maybe have like transfer limits. Maybe have roster limits. Maybe have if you take a transfer, you lose a roster spot. So almost like if you take one, you lose one, So if you take 5 transfers, it's like you lose 5 regular spots. They got to figure out a way to make that a balance because you can't just have 300 kids go in the portal and then all of a sudden, like, first of all, where are they going to go? And I keep saying that. Where are they going? There isn't 300 kids that are going to another Division I school. Not happening. I'm sorry. Keep dreaming. So now you're going to have an influx of those kids now going down to the 1AA Division II level, or sadly, you're going to have kids who never play football again. And it's all because they were poorly, mentored and advised, and now they're on the block and nobody wants them, or there's not enough money, or they spent their Pell Grant money, or whatever the case may be, and now they're stuck. So I think those rules need to be just, if you're going to do it, great. It's America. You have the right to do whatever you want. I'm all for it. But there's got to be implications for those universities that are going to be taking them in order to kind of let the kids know, hey, at the end of the day, there's only 5 spots available per team. There's X amount of teams. You know they're all not going to take 5. These are the numbers. If there's these many people in the portal, it's not going to work. So the kids could see factual information and make better decisions. But right now, you got everybody telling them, yeah, just transfer, bro, just transfer. And they're doing it, and then now they're all pissed off. And I say that because I know personally, kids that I don't even coach call me, hey, coach, can you help me? And I'm like, why'd you go in the portal in the first place? And now they're stuck. Nobody wants them, and they're going to end up in, you know, Southwest, Northwest Assembly Baptist of God somewhere in, North Dakota.
Right.
And then they'll be miserable and they won't finish school and they're back home and they don't have a degree. They don't have anything to show for it.
See, and then coach, that is the key. It's interesting because we all know, 99.9% of these kids are going to end up, with their football ending. And I think that's my big key is like, what do you have? It's like, I think about it, like you think about all these situations. It's like you graduate from FIU with your BA, you're set, right? You can go to work. And it's like we almost have to set these minimum goals for these kids. It's like, I love how, coach, you bring it back to the real world, right? Because we live in the real world. It's like, what are we, we're getting something from these kids. What are we giving back in return? And when that kid comes back without even an AA degree, having to start work, football's over. That's not a good situation. That's a hard, it's mentally tough even for that kid to go from being, one of the special kids, to delivering pizzas, man. I mean, it's a tough transition. It causes problems.
No, and I always tell people at the end of the day, I truly believe this, me being an athlete, I went through it and see the kids go through it. If you're a traditional student at a college, right, you're taking 2 classes on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and 2 classes on Thursdays, right? That's a full course load. That's 12 credit hours, right? You're a full-time student. That's 2 classes a day. If your classes are from 8 in the morning till 11 o'clock in the morning, right? You go to lunch, and then you could now turn around and go intern. You could go to work. You could start generating experience on your resume. If you're an athlete, you don't have that courtesy, that luxury. Okay, whether you're in season or out of season, you have 24 hours of something. Okay, and the NCAA tries to come in there and say, oh, they can only have 5 hours of practice a day or something, or football related activity. Yeah, sure. But add 5 hours of football, 5 hours of school, that's 10 hours, right? 3 hours of meals, because you got to check in for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay, that's 13 hours. Okay, and then add study hall and add whatever else they add from the academic side of it. Okay, you're looking at 15 to 17 hours of something. There's 24 hours in a day. That's 8 hours of sleep. At what point in time did that person forget about getting an internship or a job? At what point in time did that person, that individual, find time for themselves?
Yeah. How do they get time to go out on a date? And then what to pile on that? What about the money of it all? I mean, just a simple fact of taking a girl out to a movie,
Yeah. So you got to work around that. But my point of that is those athletes that are sitting there and putting in a ton of work, right, for the universities, fine. You don't want to pay them. That's a slippery slope. I get it. I'm on the fence about it. But I think the school should do a better job of job placement for those kids. Because me as an athlete, when I came out of college and I typed up my resume, I didn't have nothing on it. You know what I mean? Like my little summer job when I would come down for 2 weeks, I could put some money in my pocket so that I could take a girl out on a date. That's what I would do it for. Like that's not real work. So then, yeah, I have a degree, but then when you go apply, they tell you, oh, well, you don't have any experience.
Yep.
So you're like, well, damn. Well, what do you mean I don't have any experience? I've worked 24-hour shifts. I've been put in high pressure situations. I have a phenomenal work ethic. I'm on time. I'm punctual. Check my references. That is a job. Football needs to be considered, or all sports should be considered a job on a resume, and it should be taken more seriously. Due to the non-official, work description that you would put on a resume. And I think that's the difficult part.
It's interesting you say that, coach, because like I've seen how you're producing these kids, and for you to produce 4 D1 kids, and the way that you guys and Champagnat, like the idea of those kids that kid's got to go to Georgia Tech, which is good, which is a tough academic experience for anybody.
Right.
Tough citizenship experience, right?
Yep.
He's got to load up, go to another state, another environment. And it's like, I love how you guys are focused on, thanks, coach, for your leadership for this next generation, because, I know, it does you no good to have that kid fail out in December,
Right.
like you guys pour everything into these kids to take it to level, which, let me be clear, any kid going to Georgia Tech, that's a tough experience, not let alone playing D1 football.
So what I've been able to do with this particular kid and my conversation with the coaches, and part of making sure that this, everything goes smoothly, is you got most people that want to sit there and ask for different things, right? And make sure things happen. My request was make sure that anytime that he is off, whether it be in the summer that the course load is light, whether it be winter break, whatever the case may be, I don't want him coming back home. I want him to go and get an internship somewhere in Atlanta. It's a metro growing city. Okay, him being an African American male, okay, it fits him great. And I say, hey, listen, we need to get this done. We need to get him in a place to get experience, to get work experience, and to get better. And that to me is the key of going to a Georgia Tech. And like or like last year, remember Machado went to Tulane, same thing.
Pretty close.
Same thing, same experience, high education. Well, guess what? It's great to have a degree, but I want a degree with experience. And that's what I've been teaching my kids to go get when they go to these places. And I'm on them. I'm on the coaching staff, and I put that pressure on them. I put that pressure on them to make sure they're doing right by the kids, because I think that's what's important.
Yeah, you
awesome, coach. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And you mentioned build their resumes. Coach Hector Clavijo, you built quite a resume as a high school football coach here in our community, and we really appreciate it. Last question before we close out with you. So what's the future for Champagnat Catholic there in Hialeah? When does spring football start now?
So spring football will start officially it's May 1st usually, or whatever that Monday, the closest Monday to May 1st is when spring starts. But right now as a program, we're going to be focused on track and field and basketball. We're big on playing multiple sports. So all our kids will go over to basketball or track. We'll start getting faster, bigger. The weight room program, we'll start it back up probably mid-January. And we'll get that show back on the road. And
get plenty of rest between now and then, and hopefully next year you'll bring home another championship for us. Thanks so much, Hector, for joining us here this morning at Miami Community News.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You have a great day.
Thanks, coach.
You too. Thank you.
So there you go. David Winker, I know you love high school football, and you cover it for the Patch, right? Patch.com.
I do a weekly column.
Yes. And so what other games is, I really don't follow high school. I love watching the games. And I got to tell you, in preparation for this interview, I was looking at some of the highlights of that game, and I was awestruck by the level of talent, by the play calling. I mean, there was one play, University Catholic was a sort of a reverse.
University Christian.
Christian was a reverse. Then the player stopped, threw a long touchdown pass, hit the guy right in stride. You saw that play, right?
Hit him right in stride.
Right in stride. And then the one-handed catch up high. I mean,
the kids can play.
I mean,
it's funny. I try to. It's like one of the things I try to do in the column is just highlight, like, there is, so many problems we have in South Florida, right? So many problems in the world right now.
Yes.
And there's something that we do better than anyone in the nation, and it's right in our backyard. And it's this really diverse, cool thing. Like, it's not like, oh, it's an inner city thing. Oh, it's a Catholic thing. You got Champagnat Catholic. You got Columbus. You have this mix of schools. And I just think it's really cool, the level of excellence that we're putting on the field. And it's shown every year because they go to Tallahassee. So this year was a little bit weird because some of the schools opted out of the state championship. For example, Columbus, Booker T, Washington. But in the state championships, 1A, we don't have any 1A. Those are the tiny schools. The closest 1A we have is Pehokee up in Belglade.
Pahokee is a 1A?
Yep.
Wow.
That's their 1A.
They must win every year. I mean,
No,
God.
they don't, though.
No?
You know who wins? The Madison Cowboys. Although this year it was Madison got beat by the eventual winner. I can't remember what the name of it was, the name of the school. But then 2A, Champagnat has just been a monster. Last 5 years, they've been to the finals. 3A, Champagnat Madonna was going for a 4-peat and lost.
They lost, right?
A heartbreaker. And then last night, Cardinal Gibbons. Talk about Catholic dominance, right? Cardinal Gibbons won last night, state championship at 4A. Then in now today we have Central.
Today Central plays.
Today's Central, and
that's at what, 6A?
That's 5A.
5A. I'm sorry. Okay.
6A is St. Thomas Aquinas.
Okay.
Isn't that right? And then American Heritage is in there. One of those ones.
But so Central's the only Miami-Dade County school still
yes,
vying
Central's
for
one
a
that could bring it home for Champagnat, but
right.
Public school, exactly. Northwestern got knocked out earlier. So yeah. And so anyways, that's why I like it. And I think that for me, like when you hear him talk about it, it's like Coach Clavijo quickly pivots to this next level. Like, what are we doing with these kids? Like just flushing them out of the system and putting them as work, going out on the street and just getting these jobs. Like, it's like, that's not his goal. His goal is to get these kids into college and get them going. And you heard his frustration because it's kind of a weird year. But anyways, but
you listen, I don't know that you see that in a lot of high school coaches. I mean, he is so laser focused.
No, they are. I got to tell you,
they are.
That's the change. And that's the thing, is we have more coaches and you'll see they're really focused on like our high school football. These coaches are shaping these men and a group of students that need the direction, right? Like they're big, they're violent, they're like these are kids that I find it's so important. These are the biggest, toughest, meanest kids at the school, and to put them in this positive direction and do this. Coach Pollard at Coral Gables, all of these schools are really focusing on like the whole man, and producing this kid that can compete at the next level of life, right? Be a good son, be a good father, be a good husband. I think it's changed. And I think that these coaches also, we've always had this thing, like you heard him say, like these, they don't have normal interactions, right? They don't get to sit around on the lawn and hang out like normal college kids. So the idea is, how do you take a kid who, we saw it with a little bit with the, Aaron Hernandez documentaries.
Yeah, right.
It's like, go on the ultra violence. You're going to be rewarded for being ultra violent, lifting weights, hitting people, winning at all costs. And then, switch gears as soon as you get in the classroom.
Right.
And we're surprised when Aaron Hernandez is like punching out people at a bar.
Right.
And it's like, I don't want to excuse the guy's a murderer, but there is something to be said for like, whoa, like these kids, you got to take the time to teach them how to do both things. And it's interesting because at some of the private schools, like they have a little more of a luxury of that. And I've seen it with, Hector's pretty hardcore about demanding a level of discipline, off-season training. You saw his requirement, about Georgia Tech. Like, I don't even want this kid coming home. Keep him up there.
Yeah, but I wonder if a lot of, so you're saying most high school coaches are having those types of conversations with scouts and stuff that are recruiting.
I think they're pushing it. I mean, I always think back to, I worked at a big law firm here in Miami, and one summer, think about this. Think how cool this was for me as a young lawyer. Our 2 interns were at the time, UM students, UM football players, Najee Davenport and Clinton Portis.
Really?
You talk about 2 great guys, very different guys,
right? 2
great guys that were just interns at the firm, and they worked. They did it on purpose, and it was kind of that. I never thought of what he said. It was to give people experience and do that, and it was so great. Like, I just look back on it. It was so great to interact with those guys, and for all those years to watch them in the NFL and watch their success and watch the things that they were doing. And so it goes both ways, right? It goes like getting these guys into the community mixing with everybody. And so, anyways, I think it's a positive. That's what I try to highlight in my column. Is those positive things that can come from that. Like, it's like, I always find you talk to Hector, or you talk to Coach Pollard, like, you just want to walk through a wall when you're done with it. Like, that guy's a winner.
Yes.
And he's a winner
Clearly.
in what? The right way.
Yes.
Right. He's going about it the right way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
And a real inspiration.
family
And,
guy.
right. And,
you know,
and a great role model
every
for
time
these
you
young
interview
kids.
him, he's got a kid strapped in the back.
Yeah. Fighting through traffic, going from point A to B. It's a lot of, and he has a career beyond that. I mean, I know he's in the real estate business.
Real estate business.
I mean, you don't make really a great living being a high school football coach, right?
Yep.
So it's a lot of really,
Unless you're in
coming from the
Texas.
heart.
And
right?
that's the other thing too, is that the comparisons, like coming from Texas, where they play in $100 million high school stadiums. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Where the coaches are paid $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
What does a guy like Hector make? What does a guy like Pollard make?
Yeah.
$6,000.
But they
$2,000?
seem mighty dedicated and very laser focused to the kids and their future.
Because
and that's what you need. You need those role models.
They see the impact that they like, think about that kid. I mean, it's funny for us to think about, how I have a 7-year-old daughter. What's the phone call you're going to get from me if she got into Georgia Tech?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like it's a big deal just on any
no
level,
doubt.
not let alone playing football.
Forget just
Tech.
getting in there.
My kid got into Georgia Tech. I mean, it's like
which
so
which
cool.
actually is a testament to that kid. Not only is he a great football player, but obviously he's probably a pretty good student too.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of great people that tuned in today. I want to just say hi to a few of them. Chris Wolf, he's going to be starting a show here, Men Going Home, about his involvement in the prison system, dealing with lifers at Everglades Correctional.
Wow.
Chris, thanks for tuning in. Neil Mursky, one of the best rock and roll program directors I ever worked with in the radio business. Neil Mursky. Lee Sterling. Lee, if you're still watching, I'm going to be calling you. I need a few good picks. I'm down from last week. He is the prognosticator extraordinaire.
We need to have Lee versus Tommy, the prognosticator.
There's no. Yeah. That's a battle that Tommy will lose every time. George Gonzalez. George, good morning. It wishes you and I good morning.
George,
Thank you.
We needed George. We got a new year. Going to have George in for a show.
Absolutely.
The George show.
Oh, David Arbetter. David, we're waiting on those hot dogs. You got to bring them tonight, David. Romberg and I have been talking about your hot dogs all week. He's hoping you might name one after him, a Rom dog, which you don't want to know what that means. It's a very nasty story. But Neil Richardson, my old JC buddy, thanks for watching. Oh, look at this. Adam Lubby Lubkin. My gosh. He used to run the Hurricane Radio Network for Paxson Sports. Lubby, thanks.
Lee Sterling met Grant Miller yesterday at Arbetter.
Oh, look at that, Lee.
Wow.
Apparently, look at this. Is this 7 degrees or 8 degrees or 12 degrees of separation? He was at Arbetter's yesterday. So you got David Arbetter, who's going to bring hot dogs tonight to Romberg and I. You got Grant Miller over here.
That was great. And Grant, I got to tell you something. It's funny being here on Friday. I always love doing Fridays. Like, I just think about, like, even Andy Korge can't ruin Friday, right?
Yes.
I mean, even.
Oh no! Wait a second. Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Dave Arbetter brought a trophy from 1976 that had Dr. Sterling's name. Dr. Sterling coached Dave Arbetter.
Are you serious?
Wow.
Yes,
Awesome.
it was a kumbaya yesterday.
Wow, that's
Love
great. Well, let's continue that kumbaya tonight at 6:00. David Arbetter, just a couple dogs. I like sauerkraut and mustard on mine, so just saying. But I want to thank you all. I want to thank you, David Winker. David, I'm going to get a commitment live in front of people right now. You come in here every Friday with
Every
me?
Friday. We're ready. Winker Friday. I love being here with you, Andy. All kidding aside, it is so nice to be here. And it's interesting because it's a desperate, like, there's so much to talk about. And one thing I was saying, it's living in South Florida, there's just not a lack of lunacy and stuff going on. I want to talk elections with you. I want to talk the new administration. I mean, there's so much that is going on, and it's interesting. You can feel it in the air, Andy. People are excited. Like, people see the end of this. Like, I was at a dinner last night, and someone was saying, like, an invocation or a prayer, and saying, what would the spirit of this country be right now if there was no vaccines? Like, so you go, and then with the vaccines, everyone's like, this is going to be over by June.
Yeah, light at the end of the tunnel, no
June,
question.
We're going to be back to normal. And it's funny because I've been asking a couple people, I've been saying, like, I'm kind of operating under the assumption like it's going to go wide open in June. Why do I say that? Because me and my family, we're dying to travel. We're dying to get on a plane. We're dying to go to a sporting event. We're dying. Like, I feel like this pent up demand. And don't get me wrong, people are hurting. It's gonna be hard to go in, but that machine. I just feel like the economy and the machine is gonna get going again. We want to go out.
Well, I was on a Zoom call yesterday with former Congresswoman Donna Shalala, who, by the way, is still in Congress. Not a lot of people know this, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit on Monday here on the show. But I was on a Zoom call with her and other business people. The project on government oversight. It's an organization about the upcoming CARES Act, and got a really good outlook from Donna Shalala. But she's still in Congress because she still sits on. She's one of two citizens, not congressional members, that was chosen to sit on the Congressional Oversight Committee for the upcoming CARES Act money that's going to be released through the CARES Act round. I guess this would be 3 or whatever it is. But yeah, interesting stuff going on in Washington. That money coming out soon for what is the next round of relief for a lot of people that are going to be, some of which, you're a lawyer, out on the street come January 1st when all the moratorium ends on evictions. Yep. And so it's a weird time in our country.
And then I was thinking about you. Just change the subject back to sports. I was thinking about you with those sorry Gators losing that game at LSU.
Oh my God.
Thrown shoe. All the Gators belly aching about the shoe.
But you know what's funny about that? Brett Romberg, who played, as you know, played at the UM, played 9 years in the NFL. He was saying in our show that he didn't see anything wrong with it.
With throwing the shoe?
Yeah, he said it was.
That gets called at every level.
I know, but he was saying as a player, you're in the moment. It was almost part of the play. When he saw it and we looked at it together, he says, well, that's part of the play. So that was an interesting thing to me.
That's a funny take because I saw it and I heard people say like controversial call. And I'm like, I have watched a lot of football.
Yeah, it's going to get called
Canada,
every time.
In the United States, at every level. That's getting called 100 times out of 100 times.
Right.
I don't know. I didn't see any controversy.
Yeah. No, I don't know either. But
I think maybe what Romberg was saying, I didn't hear that conversation, but maybe he was saying it's like in the heat of the moment, the player, but it's like, man, you got to be more disciplined than that. It cost them the game and perhaps cost them the national championship. Although it looks like now it's like the way that they've fallen. If they beat Alabama, they're like right back in it.
Yeah, they could be. So, and I'm going to get that. I don't know what the line is, but I'm going to call Lee Sterling
Tommy,
today.
Help us out. What's the line?
He's going to give it to us. While he's doing that, I'll give it at the very end. I want to thank you for watching. Thank everybody that came on to watch the show live or watch it later. This is Miami Community News, the hub for local news and information. You want to know what's happening in Miami-Dade? Miami Community News is the place to find out. I want to thank you so much for watching in live and being with us every morning at 9 a.m. during the Andy Korge Show. Don't forget, today at 6 to 8, I'll be back with Brett Romberg for Romberg and Korge, also on onsideradio.com. If you're just a listener, what do we got there? What's 17 points? Oh, everybody.
17.
Opened at 14. Now it's 17. Everybody's jumping off that Gator. 74 over and under.
Is Clemson Notre Dame this weekend? What's the line on that one?
10 and a half. Hey, listen, 74, and seeing the Gators defense, I think Alabama could score 74 on us. But again, thanks so much for joining us from Miami Community News. We will be back again Monday at 9. And don't miss 6 to 8 p.m. tonight. Brett Romberg and I talking sports, and some of those stories, maybe even a couple hot dogs in the process. Thanks, David Winker. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great and safe weekend. Happy holidays from Miami Community News.